Well, now we've done some singles. We are ready for some long form. We're ready for some Rage Against the Machine, their second studio album and the second Rage Against the Machine album we're going to be covering. I forget sometimes that they had 3.5 years between albums, guys. Like, because the self-titled was 92, and then this one came out in 95. The first one was kind of like a slow burn, right? So the tracks were sort of seeping out. And I can definitely remember the anticipation for this one. There's two singles on this one. We're talking, of course, about Evil Empire. We've done a long form bio of Rage Against the Machine already in the earlier episodes, so I'm just going to jump right into, unlike the other two artists we're going to cover tonight who we haven't covered, we'll do a little bit of bio. Let's just jump like right into, I know all three of us are familiar with this album, so it's not a new listen for any of us. I'll tell you what, Josh, let's have you start. We'll go to Jeff, and then I'll finish up.
Yeah, this was the album I think that I first remember hearing about Rage Against the Machine when I was younger. I remember kids having like a shirt with the album cover on it, I think, or some sort of like reference, because it's kind of a distinct looking cover with the kid on the front, and
it's got a story to it that I could share later if you guys are interested.
Okay. Yeah, sure. But this is, I was very high on their debut album, and I'm high on this one as well. Their lyrics are so dense and referential to a lot of historical incidents, and kind of, they're a band about societal oppression and oppressing of the working man, and kind of rebellious movements around
left-wing politics, I'd say.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a good overarching term.
Marxist view of the world, I'd say, would also be fair. Yep.
So you could write theses on what they reference and talk about on all of these songs, but it still has their trademark. In addition to that, it still has their trademark guitar by Tom Morello, which is on fire here. Like what I said about their self-titled debut, the combination of Morello and Zach De La Rocha's lyrical ability and kind of rage, literal rage against the machine. I mean, is there a better like band title for kind of what they espouse? I don't think so. But the opening track with People of the Sun is a shot right out of the gate, and it carries on through this entire album. Bulls on Parade is the second track, which is on fire, and I just forgot about some of the other tracks on this album because I hadn't listened to it in a while, but I really liked Viet Now, which is the third track, and the that has a great line about all the world is jails and churches. I mean, if you read the lyrics, this is an album that benefits kind of reading the lyrics along to.
Oh yeah, it's stacked with great lyrics.
Yeah, so you can read it on that level, but you can also just like get hyped up. And this, Rage Against the Machine's the perfect workout album for me, because I will like lift harder and faster than ever before. But
although you don't want to end up like we said, like the Paul Ryan thing, where you become like a proto-libertarian who talks about how much you connect with Rage Against the Machine. So be careful that you just use this workout.
Nobody's going to accuse me of becoming a proto-libertarian.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
But Snake Charmer is another track further down that I really like. Down Rodeo has some great lyrics as well, and I just love their vibe and the energy that they bring. I did take a brief look at some of their videos to see how they were kind of marketing themselves, because I don't remember anything about that side of the thing. And it's them performing live mixed with like things about the lyrics or images of lyrics, or kind of rebellious movements throughout history on both of those songs, Bulls on Parade and People of the Sun. But this is in comparison to the first album, I don't know, maybe the first album is a bit higher for me, but really they're kind of, it's hard to like separate the albums for me in terms of quality, because they're all kind of high quality, and I just love the guitar and the energy and the lyrics. So I mean, basically I just summed up like what people like about music. So I guess that's what I feel about Rage Against the Machine, is they're one of my top tier bands. So this is a thumbs up for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, Josh, just to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying. I mean, I think you're spot on in terms of the lyrics. The thing about the Rage Against the Machine is that they are just so rocking, and this album has just so much energy, and you just want to just thrash out, like work out to it, like you were saying.
Hmm.
I mean, this band is so tight instrument wise. I can't even listen to the lyrics because I just get so hyped up just listening to this whole album.
Yep.
It's just funky. The bass is funky. It's got heavy metal guitar. I mean, Zach De La Rocha's voice is just like, I mean, he's saying so much, but honestly, I kind of have so much difficulty listening to the lyrics because the rest of the band is just awesome, and they just bring so much energy. It's so funky. It's like punk. It's heavy metal. Like I can't, like you're right. It's like I have to probably listen to this album again just to go, because you do hear that he has such a great vocabulary and like mastery of like telling stories about history. And it was funny because I was in this band, in the 90s, the three of us around there, around college. And this was total college band where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing them live in college. I could see how back then,
wow.
a lot of kids in college going to go see them. But yeah, I couldn't listen really to the lyrics. I have to go back and listen because I'm just like, holy shit, one track after the other. Just a great album. And I don't, John, you could probably reference maybe some other rock bands or quasi rap rock bands that try to do it. Rage, they do it right. I mean, I don't know if it's like Papa Roach or some of the others.
Well,
we're
trending to lots of this in the late 90s. Now, whether it works or not, it varies. Yes,
I don't really know the names of these bands, but I know a lot of bands try to do it.
Limp Bizkit, Papa Roach, Linkin Park. Early Linkin Park tries to Korn a little bit. And before this, you've got like Faith No More's in this territory a little bit. Anthrax. Those are bands that have some. Ministry, right? Those are bands that have elements of trying to Body Count, the Ice-T group. But this was Rage was kind of like the Beatles of this type of sound, like they were like the tip top of it.
Yeah. So exactly, and I think Rage they were just like right on top. I mean, in terms of the genre, and I think they span all different types of genres, not just kind of like the rap rock. But I will say the one track that I really liked that was kind of like under the radar, because I think all the tracks that you mentioned was the last one, Year of the Boomerang. It was when they do this kind of like funky shift and like the drumming tempo and everything, it just kind of like changed direction. I thought that was like a really great like last track. But yeah, I have to listen to the album again for the lyrics because clearly I couldn't listen. I was just like thrashing out.
Right. That's why we give it multiple listens usually, because I can't. Sometimes you can't get over that initial gut feeling about it. But you're right, Jeff. Like nobody does rap rock better than Rage. Nobody has, and nobody is. I can't. There is no mainstream band that's as political as them, that was as popular as them. That's just
that
like
was as popular. Correct. Yeah.
That's a gap that no longer exists anymore, or a market.
I mean, we've covered like MC5 and Minor Threat, and some groups that were highly political, but they never had any critical. I mean, MC5 maybe had a little, right? But yeah, no one's doing this level of overt political commentary.
The other thing I wanted to add before John gives his take, and this is as far as the production goes, because I am kind of always thinking about that now in the back of my head, now that John always talks about it.
I've evangelized you.
Yes, you have. Is that it's mixed really well, and the bass is really strong on this. You can hear the bass really well. And
it's up in the front, isn't it?
Yep. That adds to the strength and like kind of the amping up feeling, I think, when I listen to this album. So credit to Tim Comerford on bass as well.
Yeah, bass being mixed to the front and then in the chorus, like everything exploding like a bomb of the sounds coming together. Like, because if you notice in the mix, their choruses are usually Zach De La Rocha is either screaming or intensely doing something. Tom Morello is playing like some sort of like solo almost as a chorus part, right? And then they'll drive, and then the bass just sort of blends with the rest of it. But as you're headed to the bass, yeah, the bass guitar and to some extent the drums also are mixed to the front. But because Tom Morello is such a unique guitarist and Zach De La Rocha has that, you know, that intensity that you just can't teach there, it seems like they're further up in the mix. When they're not really, when you listen to it. But that's one thing that comes to mind. And the other thing that Rage Against the Machine does really well is their use of repetition. Because in untrained hands, right, like this type of repetition could get old real quick, but it never does with Rage Against the Machine because you always know it's leading you to something and it's leading you like into an intense chorus. But yeah, I mean, Down Rodeo is a good example. So, you know, you get the repetition of, you know, I'm rolling down Rodeo with the shotgun, you know, like, so you get that and then just doing different stuff. But yeah, then he's throwing in stuff that's just like, you know, these people ain't seen a brown-skinned man since their grandparents bought one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
know.
It's like,
so
woof.
provocative.
It's like, I was about to say, it's just like, it's talking about second round KO. You know what I mean? Just like hitting you over the top. Also, the fact that Rage Against the Machine is such an interesting group in that, like, you kind of don't know exactly what their ethnicity is, right? You know what I mean? So they're not, you can't like pinpoint them, you know, as like an angry black group, you know what I mean? Like people did with hip hop, right? Or like, you know, punk dudes, you know what I mean? Like subculture, you know, Tom Morello and Zach De La Rocha are vaguely, you know, like, multiracial, you know, and they are, right? So you kind of don't 100% know. So I think that adds authority to it too, because they're coming from a variety of cultures. And the other, you know, the other two guys, I think Tim Crummerfield and I always forget the name of the drummer too, but
Brad Wilkes.
Brad Wilk.
Yeah, Tim
Brad
Comerford
Wilk, yes.
and Brad Wilk.
Yeah, yeah, and they look like at times like they just came out of a hardcore band. You know what I mean? So like, you know, they're not your average type of white dude, right? You know what I mean? You're not 100% sure if they're like coming from like neo-Nazi land or like hardcore land. They're not, you know, but like they have like an intensity to them as too. So they're not just like a dude with long hair playing the bass or the drums, right? And it also kind of averts the standard, right? That like the singer and the lead guitarist, right, are the multiracial folks, and the rhythm section is the two white guys, which I always thought was kind of funny too, and like transgressive, right? Because you know, if you roll into the world of stereotypes, right, you know, that's not where you imagine these, you know, these different people are residing, if you think about it. So I always thought that's good. Yeah, the lyrics are devastating all throughout this album. I like the first album better, like as a whole piece of music, because there's just something about. There's just something that there's like lightning in a bottle they captured there that you can't go back to. But this was the view of a like a more polished band, I'd think, and there's something to be said for that too. But yeah, listen once for just the vibes, and listen a second time almost as if you read poetry, because that's, you know, what you're getting here, like two different. And you get two wildly different interpretations. So,
you know, one thing, just in regards to the lyrics, I was reading that I guess if you had the original CD, they had like basically like a book collection. Like I don't know, it was a picture of books.
It was a reading list.
Oh wow.
A reading list, yeah. And it was, I don't know, like, you know, like Howard Zinn was on there, like People's History of the United States, a bunch of other books, but probably inspiration from that.
Oh, it's like it's a who's who of like left wing politics. You've got like got like Che Guevara, Huey Newton, Carl, you know, Das Kapital by you know, Karl Marx, Howard Zinn, Saul Alinsky, right, Steinbeck. You know, it's almost James Baldwin was on. It's almost comical. Noam Chomsky. You know what I mean? So it's basically, if you wanted to know where the left wing was in 1995, like that's a good playlist.
Kind of where it still is. In a lot of ways.
Books. Yeah, I was about to say, kind of to some degree. It's like when we talk about what a liberal is and like what they view a liberal as, it's kind of funny because like their concept of a liberal and like what we call a liberal is just so markedly different. So I also found funny was that when you signed up for their fan club, they sent you like a copy of a UPC code, but it was actually like written by them, you know, like in there to kind of mock the concept, right, of like a UPC code, because, you know, they're anti-capitalist, right? But even anti-capitalists have to, make money sometimes. So along the way to sustain themselves. But that's the thing with them too. They do have a little bit of the same ethos that like a hardcore band does, don't they?
Yeah, there's definitely like a Fugazi element to them.
Yeah. Fugazi's another good description. Yeah, they're kind of like if Fugazi got popular in some ways. It's kind of remarkable that there was a time when a band like this could be in the mainstream and sell like 5 million copies.
It's crazy.
There's no other like real example of like a band this overtly political. Like it's also they spent like almost no time in the subculture, which is insane for a band that's this political, right? Because almost everybody else that's this political in this era, right? Like we said, Fugazi, Bad Religion, the different stuff like that. They're like deeply underground. Like they might get a track that pops through, but that's it. That's the extent of it's there. So that the corporate overlords letting this come through is also kind of wild when you think about it. So
yeah, it's incredible to think about it from that perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah, because they've always been around, I don't think you kind of process that as well, because you're like, well, yeah, Rage Against the Machine, right? They had hits, but it's like the fact that like you even can get like a Rage Against the Machine to like be corporately viable, like, and not like, oh, let's just throw a bone to this is, I don't think you could have done that at a time before 1995, and I don't think you could have done it even 3 years later, because the template of what Rage Against the Machine was so commodified 3 years later, so that like when you're getting Limp Bizkit and stuff later, you're getting like this with all of the stuff. You're getting the anger, right? But you're getting a different type of anger that has nothing to do with what this is.
Yeah, so. not a focused anger, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I called the song Down Rodeo when it should be Down Rodeo in retrospect, so I'll correct myself on that.
I also followed you there too, even though I'm like, why am I saying this? Yeah, it's a because literally they're repeating Down Rodeo Drive. So yep. Mm-hmm. So